If you can cast your mind back to the end of 2019, we caught up with a man by the name of Damien Linnane. He had just released a novel titled Scarred, and we're catching up with him again this morning because he has done so much since then. Firstly, Damien, welcome back to the show. Now, remind our listeners why we spoke to you 18 months ago.
Yeah, right. No, thanks for having me back. So I went to prison in November 2015. I got a 2-year sentence. I was in there for 10 months. The magistrate described me as a vigilante. I took the law into my own hands for something, and I spent 10 months in prison, and I quickly found out that there wasn't much to do in there, no education, and there's no therapy. So I spent the first 5 months of that sentence writing a novel by hand, and the second 5 months teaching myself to draw, and both of those ventures have expanded a lot since I got released.
So, Damien, before you went to prison, and I guess this is what we're going to cover when we talk about your podcast, but I guess it's prejudice and preconceived thoughts we have of prisoners, but you were very educated before you went to prison. I believe you were in the Australian Army, and you also had a degree majoring in psychology. So I guess first and foremost, you really can't stereotype anyone that may end up incarcerated.
Yeah, definitely. I only actually finished my degree a few weeks before I went in, which was a little funny. But people ask me what the people in prison were like, because we've all got this very preconceived idea. But yeah, I can honestly say I met the best and worst people I've ever met in my life. We're met in prison. There's some really great people in there who just got a little bit like myself, got put in a position that could have happened to anyone, and probably reacted in a way that maybe they shouldn't have.
We better mention it, Damien, because I know people would be wondering. You basically were sentenced because you were seeking revenge.
Yes. My partner at the time told me that years earlier she had been sexually assaulted, and that dragged up a lot of really bad memories from my childhood that I'd been trying to bury. And I went around to his house for the purpose of attacking him. But again, the short version is he wasn't home, and I was there, and I was angry, and I made the decision on the spot to set fire to his house because I was there, and I was mad, and I didn't want to go home empty-handed. Yeah.
So looking back on that years later, would you do it again, or have you decided that that's not the way you would go?
It's funny. I've recently written a second book, a memoir, which hasn't been released yet. Still in the publishing stage. But as I said, the tagline in that is, I guess I put torching that rapist's house in the same box as the time I got married in Vegas, in the sense that it was an incredible experience, and I don't regret it at all. But that being said, I'd be very hesitant to do it again. I'm neither proud nor ashamed of it. It happened. I know why it happened, but yeah, I don't think I'll ever do anything like that again. Yeah.
One thing that can be said, Damien, is I think it certainly put your life on a different path. I know that you've been working with Newcastle Libraries, and you've been doing podcasts. The second season has just come out. It's called Broken Chains. Can you tell us about this?
Yes, I approached them because I had ideas for an art exhibition of the name Broken Chains, where my theme was people who made the most of their time in prison, like I did. So I drew people like Nelson Mandela and Erlon Woods, who founded the prison podcast Ear Hustle. Ironically, the library said, this is a great idea. We'd love to have your art exhibition, and we love this concept. We've just got a new podcast studio. Is there any chance you'd like to turn it into a podcast in the same theme? And that really caught me off guard because I never planned to do anything like that. But I typically go along with, I'll try anything once, kind of.
Yeah, sure.
And so I decided to give it a go, and it turned out, really well. The feedback's been really great. I've almost always interviewed former prisoners. The very last episode of season 2, we did something a little different and interviewed someone who volunteers in prisons instead. But we interview a different person, but we try to focus that episode on a specific issue. Like, for example, I interviewed Keenan Mundine, Aboriginal rights activist who spent time in prison as a child, and I interviewed him about why we should raise the age of criminal responsibility in Australia from 10. So most people don't know we can send 10-year-olds to prison in Australia.
Wow. It's topics like that. It's trying to break the stigma, I guess, around prisoners and prisons. And so through that, you're sharing some lived experiences with former prisoners. Has there been a story that's really resonated with you, Damien? I'm sure there's been plenty, but off the top of your head, is there one?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Every episode we've done so far, I've definitely been able to relate to something. Probably talking with Jade Farrell in the last episode of the first season was probably the most rich experience for me because Jade, I didn't actually know, but he's based in Newcastle as well, and he's an artist, and he did a lot of painting when he was at Long Bay. I really identified with him because he made the most of the time, and he used prison as an opportunity to create a lot of artwork, which is what I did as well. I did that with the second half of my sentence. Everyone in there, it's there's not much to do. It's a very depressing environment, and the prison doesn't give you anything constructive to do, so you have to rehabilitate yourself if you want to get better, and that was something he did through art, and which was something I could really relate to. Yeah.
So, Damien, if you could pinpoint it, what do you think is the biggest issue that prisoners face inside our prisons at the moment in Australia?
Right. There's definitely several. So there's no mental health treatment in prison, or very limited. It's stretched very thin. They pretty much limit it to sex offenders because they're the highest priority targets. But one of the reasons why there's inadequate healthcare is because prisoners don't actually have access to Medicare. This is something that people don't know about, and that's kind of what Broken Chains is all about. It's letting people know what life's really like in there. Because prisoners don't have access to Medicare, on the outside, if you've got mental health issues, you can get a mental health care plan. You can't get anything like that because prisoners aren't entitled to Medicare.
Which is where you would need it the most, one would think.
Yes, it's so mind-boggling. Nobody goes into prison because, everything's all right. For example, I was traumatised from something that happened to me in my childhood. And, I get it. I committed a crime. I need to be punished. Yeah, that's all well and good. Sending me to prison where they had no therapy didn't address the cause of my offending.
Yeah.
If anything, I was surrounded by people who told me, you should have murdered him. That wasn't the environment I should have needed to get better. So people don't understand, some people are like, how can you lobby for the right to prison? Well, it's not just about the right to prison. It's also about the rights of victims. These people need to get treatment so that they don't reoffend when they get out, but they don't. And, it's a holding pen.
Damien, it sounds amazing. It's called Broken Chains. Where can people access the podcasts?
If you can't find it searching Broken Chains, search for, Newcastle Libraries Reel, and you'll be able to listen to it through the Libraries channel.
And we've got it on our website as well, 2NURFM.com.au. Damien Linnane, I'm sure we will catch up with you again in the future. We can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you for your time today.
No, thanks for having me on. It's been great to be back.